Yes, my people, welcome to the very first episode of GabesTakes Daily. I'm going to be dropping content every single day in regards to everything football, more specifically Manchester United, but as the season as the preseason is around the corner, I want to talk about transfer, I want to talk about news, I want to talk about articles. I just want to talk about everything football. So if you like football, and you want to watch daily content on the channel, please leave a like, comment, and drop a subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot to the channel. I would very much appreciate it. But let's get into the topic of today. Manchester United and Ruben Amorim heading into next season and what we might look like. I dropped a video on the potential of Hugo Ekitike to Newcastle. And then a day later, reports came out from David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano that Liverpool were approaching Newcastle in regards to Alexander Isak. Now, in saying that, there have also been reports that Newcastle have no intention to sell. But the reality is, the clubs that you are expecting to do business are doing business. Chelsea went and signed Liam Delap, and then not too shortly after, they went inside Joao Pedro, a player who scored a goal in the Club World Cup final for them. Manchester City got their business done quite early, probably because of the FIFA Club World Cup. They brought in Ait Nouri, they brought in Ryan Cherki, they brought in Reinders from AC Milan. Arsenal bringing in, although quite controversial, Noni Madueke. It looks like they're finalizing the deal for Victor Gyökeres. They brought in Mosquera as center half cover. They brought in Norgard. Even look at Tottenham. Won the Europa League final, beating Manchester United. They bring in Morgan Gibbs-White. They bring in Mohamed Kudus, and they bring in Thomas Frank. And yet it was about 4 weeks ago that I dropped a video on Bryan Mbeumo and what he might provide to this Manchester United side, because that was around the time when the report was dropped that, United were interested. They were pursuing Brentford for the deal. And according to recent reports, the valuation for Manchester United and Brentford in regards to Bryan Mbeumo, Manchester United apparently are not really even that close. So I'm really curious, is this a sign of things to come? Is this the same old song and dance with Manchester United? And look, I am not going to sit here and say that Ruben Amorim is completely blameless. Was last season completely and utterly unacceptable? Yes. You cannot be Manchester United Football Club and finish 15th. But at the same time, these same players weren't exactly in the best situation when Ruben Amorim took over. So what I want to do today is I want to look at Manchester United. If the transfer deadline was today, what we would be going into next season with, what we would be going into the first fixture against Arsenal in the Premier League with, and I want to get everyone's perspective. So I'm going to drop my starting 11 if the game was tomorrow, and then I'm going to talk about potential changes that Ruben Amorim may make throughout the course of the season. Right, so this is the reality of what we are looking at right now in regards to Manchester United heading into 25, 26. Be completely honest. We'll start off with the goalkeepers. So Andre Onana and Altay Bayındır. I've made my opinions pretty clear on these two players. I don't think Andre Onana is a good enough goalkeeper to bring Manchester United forward. I don't think he should be our number one. However, I don't necessarily think he's going anywhere. Now, to caveat that, he obviously has picked up an injury. Now, I'm curious, does that force Manchester United's hand to go and sign a goalkeeper in the window? There's obviously been links to Emi Martinez, because apparently he's going to be out for some weeks, and I don't necessarily know if Manchester United trust Altay Bayındır. I mean, you don't necessarily expect much from your backup goalkeeper. I thought he was brilliant in the FA Cup match against Arsenal last season, where obviously he had the heroic penalty save during the 90 minutes, and then he had the great penalty save on Kai Havertz in the shootout. But I think realistically, United should be looking to improve this goalkeeping position. I don't think they will. It would be nice if they will. I don't necessarily know if I think that Emi Martinez is an upgrade, but I think that United should look to move on from these keepers. Now, I've put in order. I've put everyone in order here in terms of where I think they rank in the depth chart. So just looking at the three center halves. So again, I think that there can be switches here, right? Like Delict can come here, Euro can play at right center half. You can have probably you're gonna have Maguire in the center half. I think Luke Shaw and Aiden Heaven probably stay on the left hand side as well as Lissandro. But for me, if we were heading into the Arsenal game tomorrow, I would play this back three. So I would play Lissandro in the left side, I would play Euro in the center back position, and I would play Delict in the right center half position. Now, why would I do this? Well, Lissandro has the passing range. He's very comfortable with playing these kinds of passes out into the wide areas. He's very good in tight spaces. He's probably our best center half when it comes to building. So in my opinion, I would start him at left center half. Lenny Yoro, he obviously showed massive strides in regards to what he's capable of with carrying the ball. I think in build-up, you play Lissandro centrally because the center half typically comes and plays in midfield alongside whoever's playing as the deepest midfielder. And I think Lissandro's probably the most comfortable out of our back three in terms of getting on the half turn and playing passes and acting as that midfielder. And then obviously out of possession, he would rotate back to the left center half spot, and Lenny Yoro would take up the center half spot. I think Maguire should be good cover. I think, obviously that new deal that he received, I think he's good cover. I think Maguire still gets a lot of people don't necessarily love what he brings. I think as a center half, aerially, he's still dominant. He can still pick a pass. I think that Maguire should be a rotation player this season, definitely. And then you look at Delict and Mazraoui. I know for me, Matthijs de Ligt, I think he's a top player. I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree. I like his athleticism. I like his ability to kind of defend wider zones as you have to as a center half, which is where I don't necessarily know if Lissandro excels. But I really like de Ligt as the right center half. I think you could even play him as a center half. I think he has the capabilities. I like him as a leader. And then you have Mazraoui. So Mazraoui, obviously, from last season when we moved into that 3-4-3, he played some shifts as a wing back. Now, with Mazraoui, I don't necessarily know if I love his qualities as a wing back to get up and down the pitch. I think Mazraoui is quality as a right center half. He's a good defender. He's a good one-on-one defender. Again, has the athleticism to cover these wide areas, to defend those spaces. Again, like Lissandro, very good in tight spaces, can pick a pass. I really like him defensively. I don't necessarily know if I love him as a wingback, but I do think that there might be potential, given the lack of depth for wingback position, especially in the right spot. Mazraoui may play shifts as a wingback. Now let's get into the wingback position. So Diogo Dalot for me is again probably best suited for a right center half spot in this current system, in this current setup. What I like about Diogo is how ambidextrous he is. So he's super comfortable on both feet. I wouldn't say he really has a weak foot. And his ability to kind of cover the ground this way, and also cut inside centrally, I think he provides a lot of value in that right-hand spot. I mean, we saw him also play in the left space before as well for Ruben Amorim as a wing-back. I don't necessarily think I love him as a left wing-back. I like him in these central pockets. If he can get into these areas here, I think it's a good fit. Again, in an ideal world, for me, Diogo Dalot is a right center half in a 3, but given what we have right now, I don't necessarily know if I think that, that's going to be the situation. I think probably going into next season, Diogo Dalot is maybe our starting wing back. We'll get into why I think that he should be the right center half in a bit, but I think right now, Diogo Dalot is probably your best bet in regards to that wing back spot. On the left-hand side, I think Dorgu got a lot of criticism, in my opinion, a little bit unjustified. I think, he's still a very young player. I think he has the physical capabilities to be a good wingback in this setup. I think the way he, again, gets up and down the pitch, I think he's very comfortable when we have to sit in a back 5 and he can defend those one-on-ones. And also, I think when I think he'll connect really well with Cunha, because, Cunha likes to drop into these half spaces, drag center halves with him, and then Dorgu, with the athleticism that he has, can get him behind. And I think if his final ball is a little bit improved in regards to what we saw last season, I think that the Dorgu Cunha connection can actually be a very good one. Obviously, you have Amas and Leon in behind, two youngsters. I mean, Dorgu's a youngster himself. I'm really interested to see, what happens. Either of these two wingbacks, do they push Dorgu to become a rotation player? I think right now, Dorgu, that's his position to lose. But with a full off season, or full preseason, I'm interested to see what these two wingbacks can do. Obviously, Leon said, a lot of people are expecting me to go on loan, but I expect to fight for my place. You love to hear that from a young player coming in. But obviously, for me, Patrick Dorgu right now is the starting wing. This is where it gets interesting. So there were a few positions for me that needed to be addressed in the window. And I know I'm speaking as if the window has closed, and you'll probably be like, Gabe, you're being super negative. But for me personally, I think that the fact that we've stalled the Mbumo deal for almost a month now, it's not necessarily looking good for potential midfielders coming in. And there haven't really been any solid links in terms of midfielders. Again, in my opinion, if I were Ruben Amorim going against Arsenal in the first fixture of the season, I would probably play Kobe Bruno midfield. And I know it sounds super unbalanced, and I know what we're probably going to see is maybe Bruno Ugarte, or what we might even see is a Bruno Casemiro. Obviously, what you don't get with a Kobe and a Bruno midfield two is the balance. The problem with Kobe and Bruno as a midfield two, and the reason why it might not work, is obviously Bruno likes to attack these spaces. Bruno likes to provide depth and attack the back line. And Kobe is very good at getting on the ball in the wide spaces, again, getting more advanced. Whereas with Ugarte and Casemiro, what you're probably going to get a lot more of is defending this area. So when one of these midfielders go high, one of these midfielders provide the width or the depth. I know Bruno likes to attack these half spaces. You have the cover in Casemiro Bruno. The problem with that is we saw a lot last season that United struggled to build because of the lack of ability to do so with Ugarte and Casemiro. Bruno, I don't also think is the best when he's played deeper, but I also think that's due to the profile of midfielders he's been paired with, just because when Bruno doesn't get on the ball, he'll start chasing the ball, which will then lead to Bruno kind of dropping into these positions, and then he'll leave the center, which leads to Bruno dropping into these positions, and then he leaves the midfield open, and he just starts kind of chasing. I think his temperament has improved, but I think if you can get Kobe on the ball in deeper positions, which is I think he's our best midfielder on the ball deeper, he can get those passes into Bruno, and then Bruno can almost play in that 10 role, connect with the front three. I think that would work. Now, the only problem is when it comes to defending transitions, do Kobe and Bruno have the legs to defend those transitions? I'm not sure. So again, obviously Ugarte and Casemiro, they're probably going to be your, defensive anchor beside whoever it is, either Bruno or Mainu. And you have Toby Collier as well. I just don't think there's enough technical ability in this midfield. I don't think there's enough to, if you're up in a game and you want to hold the ball and you want to, you look at the best midfielders in the world, you look at the best midfielders in the world. For example, I know they just got smashed, but PSG with Vitinha, João Neves, Fabian Ruiz. Chelsea have the capability to keep it in midfield with Enzo and Moises Caicedo. Manchester City, obviously, with Reinders, they have Bernardo, they have Gundogan, they have midfielders rotating, Rodri. This might be a massive issue. I think it will be a massive issue if it isn't addressed in the coming weeks before heading into the new season. Now let's take a look at the front three. And again, for me, this is where there's problems. The left 10, obviously, reports have come out. Garnacho, Rashford, Anthony, Sancho, and Malacia are all on their way out. Apparently, they're not part of the plans. They've been told to look for a new club. So it's an interesting dynamic you have with the front three as of right now. The problem with what we have right now, in my opinion, is None of the players that we have here in the front three, when it comes to Xerxes, Cunha, Ahmad, who would be my front three again if the season started tomorrow, none of them really look to stretch a defensive line. Ahmad can. Ahmad has the ability to do so definitely in the wingback position, but I don't necessarily know if this has enough in terms of creating that depth and running in behind. I think you definitely get that with a Brian Mbumo, so hopefully that signing does get over the line. But obviously, Mateus Cunha is the starting left hand. He's our marquee signing. I'm super excited to watch this player play. The way he can drop deep and essentially make this a midfield three because of how deep he drops. He can connect. Give these balls. He can receive these passes from Bruno, from Kobe. He can get the ball out to Dorgu, who can, make those attacking runs. And he can, get on the half turn and turn himself and drive with the ball forward. So I'm really excited to see Mateus Cunha play for Manchester United. On the right spot, Ahmad, one of my favorite players right now for the club. The way he, again, can tackle fullback. I do think he provides the ability to run at defenders, but I also think he is more so a ball to feet player. He's very tricky. He likes to get on those 1v1s and isolate fullbacks. As of right now, I think Ahmad is a, right 10. But I think in an ideal world, kind of like the way that Ruben Amorim used Giovanni Kenda at Sporting with the left-footed right wing back, I think Ahmad here and Mbuemo here, I think if you can get, Ahmad receiving with his body open and he can connect with Bruno and then he can connect with Mbuemo, I think there's a lot of capabilities in terms of what Ahmad can be as a wing back. I think the fear is because he's so talented going forward, United fans don't want him playing as a deeper role. But I think, getting him into that winger position when we create a line of five, when we're building, I think the reality is Ahmad's going to have a lot of success in that wingback spot if we end up bringing in Brian Mbumo. And last but not least, actually, before I get into the strikers, Mason Mount. Now, I think that this is probably a player who plays in this right 10 space, mostly because I think Ruben Amorim likes his ability to press. He'll get out to the fullback. He'll press the center halves. He has a good engine. Obviously, the worry about Mason is his injuries. Last season, the last couple seasons hasn't been great. We need him to stay fit. The reality is we need him to stay fit. He cannot have another season like last season where he spent majority of the season out because of injuries. We need Mason to stay fit. Now let's get into the strikers. This is probably my front three. I'm not even joking. This is probably my depth when it comes to the number nines for United going into next season if we don't bring in a number nine. Now, according to reports, apparently we're linked with Nico Jackson. Apparently we're linked with Dusan Vlahovic. But for me right now, Xerxes is the top of the pecking order when it comes to number nines. I think if we played Arsenal tomorrow, I would expect to see his name on the team sheet. I think his overall game, what he provides, again, his ability to drop deep, his ability to link play, his ability to hold the ball up. I think he's better than any nine we have at the club to do so. The reality is with Josh is he needs to improve his goal scoring. You cannot be a 9 in the Premier League and not score goals, especially if you're trying to accomplish special things. And I don't necessarily know if Xerxes has the capability right now to score 10, 15 goals in a league season. I think he can achieve it, but I'm also curious to see if that happens. And look, I'm not going to lie, I'm a huge believer in giving the youth a chance. I think Cheeto had some good moments. I think you're being disingenuous if you think he's ready to play night in, night out in the Premier League. Still has a lot of room for development and growth. He's still so young. But I think United need to do everything they can, if I'm being completely honest, to move on from Rasmus. And this isn't even a dig at Rasmus. I don't like digging out any player who plays for Manchester United. But in my opinion, Rasmus needs to be sold and United need to look to bring in another number 9. And I know you're obviously going to take a loss and it's not ideal for the situation, but we simply cannot have another season of Rasmus being the leading 9 and not scoring the goals that he has to score. In my opinion, it can't happen. So this is what I'd run with for match day 1. And I got to be completely honest. If I look at this team on paper, is it the worst thing I've ever seen? No. Is it great? Also, no. In my opinion, I don't think Ruben Amorim as of yet has been backed. And I understand people will say, well, you need to give the club a reason to back you. And I get that. But the reality is, Manchester United brought in a new manager a quarter way through the season, with none of these being his players, aside from Matheus Cunha and Patrick Dorgu. If you truly believe in this manager and you truly brought him in to be the one to lead Manchester United back to where they need to be, you need to give him the tools and the players to be able to do so. And again, I know the window is not closed. I know that we can still go and sign players and that we can still go and sell players. But the reality for me is United needs to get a move on here. We are just over a month away from the Premier League season starting. A month goes by real quick. Manchester United need to do the right thing, get the signings in, back this manager, and give the fans a reason to believe that next season can be at least a little bit different. But let me know what you think. Is this team good enough as it is? Is a preseason with Ruben and the staff going to change what we saw from last season? Are any of the players that had a disappointing season last season going to surprise us? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Once again, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you like videos like this on the Tactical Pad, let me know. I'll definitely be dropping a lot more analysis videos using the Tactical Pad. As always, appreciate everyone for watching, and until next time, peace.